I've been in Alexander Isak's position. No one should blame him for making Liverpool transfer. Exclusive. Liverpool holds an interest in the Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak, with Michael Owen offering his thoughts on the situation amid the summer saga. Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak. Former Liverpool striker Michael Owen says it is only natural that Alexander Isak would want to leave Newcastle United to join the Anfield side this summer, with the player's head having been turned. Isak has been the subject of one bid by Liverpool, which was swiftly turned down. But Newcastle is chasing alternatives to its star man, and the number 9 could yet depart this summer if replacements can be sourced by the northeast side, which is hoping to tie up a move for Benjamin Sesko. Isak's obviously an incredibly talented boy, and I would say that there aren't that many top-class center forwards around in the world at the moment, Owen told Liverpool.com. So if there's a team in need and they're a top team, then your eyes would certainly be drawn to him. He's had a great season. Newcastle are in the Champions League this year. There's a lot to look forward to at Newcastle. They're a wealthy team. Whether they can spend that money is a different question, but I don't blame Liverpool for being interested in him. I don't blame any top team for being interested in him, because he's one of the world's best in his position. So from any club's point of view, I don't blame them at all. Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak pictured last season. Isak would be an instant starter for Liverpool should the move get over the line. Last year, he scored 23 league goals. Only Mohamed Salah notched more, and he is now ready to take the next step in his career. Liverpool clearly would be a step up. From his position, this will always be the case, Owen said. If a team that's not winning the Premier League or Champions League, in this instance it's Newcastle, are being challenged by a great team that's at the top of the tree, that is Liverpool, Champions League winners in recent years, Premier League winners as well, and competes at the very top and looks like they are going to continue to, then it's obviously a head-turner. While the player himself might have to force the move, and in staying at home rather than joining Newcastle on tour in Asia, that has perhaps already begun, Owen can understand his feelings. I've been in the position of being a footballer, and I can't blame people for being ambitious. Owen, speaking on behalf of Ask Gamblers, continued, If people were just in it for money and weren't that bothered, we wouldn't have a great game. Football wouldn't be the game it is. The whole point is that everybody strives to be the best they can be, to play for the best teams they can, and try to win as many medals as possible in their short career. So I can't blame players for wanting to excel and better themselves. It's a scenario we've seen a million times before at all levels, and we'll continue to see it. It's not unique in any way, shape, or form. This is just the norm. It's just how it transpires. Obviously, one thing is that Newcastle still has his services for about 3 years left on his contract, so they do hold a lot of power. However, we've seen before that when players want something, demand something, it's not easy to keep an unhappy player. Shearer breaks silence on one-away Newcastle striker Alexander Isak. Newcastle legend Alan Shearer has urged the club to move on from Alexander Isak, with the striker's future still up in the air. The Swedish striker remains a target for Premier League champions Liverpool, with the club preparing another approach after their first official bid was rejected this weekend. Isak has played no part in the Magpies' preseason preparations after ruling himself out with a thigh injury and spent last week training alone at his former club, Real Sociedad. On Monday, Isak returned to Newcastle's training ground, with reports suggesting he will meet with Eddie Howe to discuss his future. Speaking on the rest is football, the Premier League record goalscorer lauded Isak's contributions during his time at St. James Park, but insisted the club have to be ready to move on without him. I'm not angry at all towards him, Shearer said. Alan Shearer insisted Newcastle would be well served in moving one-away striker Alexander Isak on this summer. Eddie Howe has been forced to consider his options with Isak's future at the club in limbo. And Magpies legend Shearer claimed the club need to be able to move forward without him. Do I like it? Do I understand it? Probably two different things. But I know what football's about, and I know how it works. Obviously, Liverpool have been into him or his agent. I just thought it might have happened next year. And if it really is impossible for Eddie to turn him around, and he says no and it sounds like that is the case, I want to be out now. You get your big money for him and then you move on. As I said, no individual is bigger than any football club, and if he doesn't want to be there, fine, get what you can and get him out, and say thanks very much for the memories. Off you go. Howe has been forced to deal with multiple transfer headaches this summer, in addition to the uncertainty surrounding Isak's future. The club were linked with the likes of Liam Delap, Brian Mbeumo, and Hugo Ekitike, but ultimately watched all three join their Premier League rivals. England international James Trafford was also on the club's radar before Manchester City re-signed their academy graduate last month. Shearer reflected on the dismal summer thus far. I think up to now it's been a disastrous window for Newcastle. Newcastle target Guehi. Crystal Palace are prepared to sell skipper Marc Guehi this summer. Now inside the final 12 months of Guehi's current deal, Palace recognize this window as the last where they can secure value for money. The England international is interesting Liverpool and Newcastle United. And the Mirror says Palace are prepared to sell at a starting price of £50 million. For his part, Guehi is ready to leave and has welcomed the interest of Liverpool. Liverpool learn fresh Newcastle United transfer fear as bid rejected. Latest Liverpool transfer news and gossip with updates on Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak and Crystal Palace defender Marc Guehi. Alexander Isak of Newcastle United. There is now less than a month to go until the summer transfer window closes, with Liverpool still being linked with several potential new signings. The Reds have made 7 new additions to their squad so far, and there is every possibility that more will follow. Arne Slot and company are currently preparing to face Athletic Club in their preseason doubleheader at Anfield on Monday. After that, attention will turn to the Community Shield against Crystal Palace next week before the Premier League opener against Bournemouth. Liverpool have until September 1st to complete their transfer business for the summer, with the potential for more signings to be completed and departures to get over the line. Here, the Echo takes a look at some of the latest Liverpool transfer news and gossip that has emerged on Sunday. Alexander Isak fear. The Mirror have reported that there is fear from Newcastle United about a potential move from Liverpool for Alexander Isak. The report claims that the Magpies are mindful that the Reds could return for a second bid for Isak after seeing their initial £110 million offer rejected. It has been reported that Newcastle believe Liverpool may be playing a waiting game, similar to when they signed Virgil van Dijk in January 2018 after first expressing an interest the previous summer. Marc Guehi update. Liverpool have reportedly had a bid rejected by Crystal Palace for defender Marc Guehi. According to the Mirror, the Reds made an offer worth £40 million in an effort to sign Guehi, whose contract at Selhurst Park is set to expire next summer. However, Palace are said to have turned down the bid from Liverpool, having set an asking price worth £50 million for Guehi this summer. Newcastle are also mentioned in the report as still having an interest in Guehi, but are seemingly not willing to meet Palace's price tag. Newcastle have reportedly promised Alexander Isak he can leave the club next summer. Newcastle have reportedly promised Alexander Isak he can leave the club next summer after offering him a new contract to remain at St. James's Park for one more season. The 25-year-old is said to be pushing for a move away from the Northeast, with Liverpool seeing a £110 million bid for the Sweden international rejected. Isak joined Newcastle from Real Sociedad in the summer of 2022 and has since racked up 54 goals in 86 Premier League outings. He helped the Magpies defeat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final in March, with his side going on to secure a 5th-place Premier League finish as they booked their place in this season's Champions League. But the striker has since told his current employers that he wants to explore a transfer away from the club and was left out of Newcastle's squad for their tour of the Far East, with the Magpies putting his absence down to a minor thigh injury. According to transfer expert Ben Jacobs, Newcastle Chiefs feel Isak will either leave the club this summer or sign a new contract as they view it as untenable that he will stay on his current terms. Newcastle have already tried to convince Isak to sign a new contract and have promised him he can leave next summer. Meanwhile, Liverpool do not plan to submit a second bid for Isak at present unless Newcastle offer encouragement. But if the Magpies open the door for a deal to take place, the Reds will be there to pounce. Alexander Isak has netted 54 goals in 86 Premier League outings for Newcastle. Isak's future is said to hinge on whether Newcastle can find a replacement for the blockbuster star and how hard he pushes for a move away from the Northeast. Newcastle are currently pursuing the signature of RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko, who has bagged 27 Bundesliga goals during 2 seasons in Germany. But Eddie Howe's side reportedly saw an offer of £65.5 million plus £4 million in add-ons turned down on Saturday, as Leipzig were unhappy with the overall package. And Newcastle also faced competition from Manchester United for Sesko's signature, with the Slovenia international said to be impressed by the Red Devils after being made aware of Ruben Amorim's long-term plans. Isak has landed back in England after training on his own at the headquarters of his former club, Real Sociedad. According to Sky Sports, the player himself refused to join the Newcastle squad on tour in the Far East and opted to head to Spain to train with his own staff instead. The Magpies are said to value Isak at £150 million, but don't want to sell him, with the prolific goalscorer still having another 3 years remaining on his current contract. Newcastle reject Liverpool's £120 million formal bid for Alexander Isak. Newcastle United have reportedly rejected a formal offer from Liverpool for star striker Alexander Isak, with the proposed package valued at £120 million, including add-ons. The Swedish forward, who is believed to be open to a move this summer, has attracted strong interest from the Reds following an earlier informal approach. The Premier League champions are keen on landing the Swedish centre-forward, despite splashing £69 million on Hugo Ekitike, who they beat Newcastle to the sign in July. The Reds have spent heavily already this summer, snapping up Florian Wirtz on a deal worth up to £116 million, while Jeremy Frimpong and Milos Kerkez arrived from Bayer Leverkusen and Bournemouth respectively for a combined £75 million. Soft Football understands that Isak, who still has 3 years remaining on his contract, has made his intentions clear to Newcastle United, expressing his desire to leave the club this summer. In a telling move, the Swedish striker has opted to train at the facilities of his former club, Real Sociedad, while Eddie Howe's squad presses on with their pre-season tour in South Korea. Now, according to transfer expert Fabrizio Romano via his X handle, Newcastle United have rejected Liverpool's opening bid for Isak, which was valued at £120 million, including add-ons. The Magpies are unwilling to enter negotiations unless they secure a suitable replacement for the Swedish striker, a scenario that remains uncertain at this stage. The tweet reads, Liverpool opening bid for Alexander Isak was worth £120 million package plus add-ons. Newcastle rejected as they won't open doors, at least until finding a replacement, and it's not guaranteed at this stage. Isak insists with Newcastle on his clear desire to join Liverpool. Newcastle have attempted to persuade Isak to stay, offering him an improved contract that included a release clause for the next summer. Senior teammates also reportedly encouraged the striker to remain at St. James's Park, but Isak and his representatives have consistently reiterated his desire to leave. Despite their public stance, Newcastle are understood to be preparing for a possible exit and have started identifying potential replacements should the situation escalate further.